What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for November 11th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Before we get started, I just want to say happy Veterans Day and thank you to all the veterans out there. I truly appreciate your service. Without you, I wouldn't be able to be here every day, giving a daily history lesson and just basically speaking nonsense about Philly sports. So I truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. If you have a veteran in your family that paid the ultimate sacrifice, thank you for your family member or your friend's service. Again, truly appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. I think we need to do a better job with thanking and celebrating our veterans, because ultimately without them, we're not able to be here and do the things we all take for granted. So thank you. Go do something nice for a veteran today. But it sucks that you guys only get one day. You should get way more than one day, but let's take advantage of it. Thank a veteran. Thank you so much, and happy Veterans Day. All right. Question of the day recap was regarding the Sixers, and they said, what is the biggest reason for their turnaround? And really, just as I expected, it was split between Harden and Nick Nurse. So a lot of people felt like Nick Nurse has brought a new culture in. Excuse me. Some people felt the cancer, as a few people called him, of getting rid of James Harden was the reason. I do think it's a combination of both, but I have to give shout-outs to Nick just for the way he navigated it. And I'm going to go a little bit out of order today, only because I want to stick with the Sixers here. And I think that game yesterday, the Sixers won 114-106 over the Pistons. It did count for the in-season tournament, but I think it was a gritty win, and that's the kind of game that under Doc Rivers, they would have kind of mailed it in, and just it would have been a loss. But Nurse, whatever he said to them at halftime, they came out and completed the comeback, and ultimately the second half, the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, they just pulled away. Joe was his normal self, 33 and 16. You got to love what Tyrese Maxey's doing. He had 29 and 11 points. It's just, I feel as the games go, he's getting more and more confident and just distributing the ball. And I just, this team is so much fun. And I mean, even what Tobias is doing he had 24, and just the spacing and the ball movement, there was just so much of that yesterday. And that's what helped lead them to the comeback. They weren't sharp early in the game, but instead of giving up and going, the one thing I noticed Nick Nurse does, he plays around with his rotation. Doc, you knew exactly what you were getting when the guys were going to sub out. And I think that's one of the key differences I noticed the past couple games, is that he's not afraid to mix it up and put guys in certain positions and play to their strengths. So good win for the Sixers. They are currently 1-0 in their, I forget which one. I think they're in Pool A or Pool, it doesn't matter. They just need to keep winning. But their next tournament game is against Indiana on Tuesday at the Wells Fargo Center. They play the same Pacers tomorrow afternoon out in Indiana. But good win for the Sixers. They are now 1-0 in group play in the in-season tournament. And I have to say, other than the courts just being ridiculous, I kind of dig it. I mean, I think that's ultimately, too, why you got Detroit coming out gangbusters and playing well that first half, because it does mean something. Apparently, there's a shit ton of money if they win it. And then you get the bragging rights. But the fact that they're doing it and it counts for the standings, I think, is a big thing. But that leads us to today's question of the day, and it's about the NBA in-season tournament. Now that it's kind of underway, we're a few days into it, how are we feeling about this tournament? Is it something that we want to get into, take serious, or is it kind of just like, it's just another game on the schedule? If we win, great, let's move on. But be sure to check out the social media. Let me know what you're thinking. Comment wherever you're listening or watching this, or shoot me a text message, however you can. Let me know what our thoughts are on the Sixers in-season tournament chances, what you feel. I think the courts are atrocious, but let me know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys like them. I don't know. I think of all the ones I've seen so far, Detroit was the least ridiculous that I've seen. Wait till you see the Sixers on Tuesday night. Whew. But let me know. All of that's in play. Just what are our thoughts about the in-season tournament? Do we care? Let me know. I kind of got into it. At first, I was like, they're losing. Who cares? F this tournament. And then once they came back, I'm like, I love the tournament. So we'll see how it goes. But let me know your thoughts on the tournament. Quick housekeeping note, be sure to check out the latest Back to the Future. Did the recap of the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That's available wherever you get your pods as well as on YouTube. It's Back to the Future with a PH. All right, good win for the Flyers. They bounced back 6-3 over the Ducks last night out in Anaheim. And it's a good win for them as a young team because Anaheim was coming in hot too. So for them to win with their backup goalie, I like it. Let's take it and we'll move on. No real Phillies update. I know I'm hearing rumors, and I feel like we've done it every offseason since he came up on his free agent contract. But I'm hearing a lot of chatter about trading for Mike Trout, and I don't know how I feel about that. 3 years ago, I would have been all about it, but the dude can't stay healthy. I don't know. And again, it's just rumors right now. I don't know. I don't really want to speculate and get into it, but if you force me to make a decision right now, I'm like, I think they can do better. I need somebody that's going to be, I need more of a contact hitter. We don't necessarily need more power, and we certainly need somebody that's going to be able to stay healthy. But I don't know. Be sure. Let me know your thoughts on that. Should this Phillies even pursue it? What you should pursue today, and mine hopefully is coming today, tomorrow, or Monday. Go to phillygoat.com. Get your Megajohn hoodie or your Megajohn t-shirt. Things are phenomenal. It's half Megatron, half AJ. It's just half Megatron, half AJ, all greatness. It's just phenomenal. Go to phillygoat.com. Check that out. While you're there, do a little Christmas shopping. They have stuff for the entire family. Even get Grandmom a t-shirt. I'm sure Grandmom would love a Megajohn t-shirt. God rest her soul. I know mine would. But go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. That's all one word, Jim Montgomery. And get your Megajohn shirt. I'm going to see Grammy in a Megajohn shirt. Let's go. All right. So speaking of Megajohn, with the Eagles, I saw it's slow because it's a bye week. Not much news is coming out, but I saw an article on Bleeding Green Nation, and the question or the title of the article was, "What if the Eagles are inevitable?" And what that meant was, and it was an interesting take and tied nicely into my rant yesterday about the referees and the good teams and overcoming things, and the summary of the article is basically that the Eagles demand perfection from the team to beat them. And if they don't play the perfect game, the Eagles are going to find a way to win inevitably. And so that's where, are the Eagles inevitable? And if you think about the way they've played so far, not one team they've played the perfect game. The Jets did not necessarily play a perfect game. It's just the Eagles were unable to overcome the mistakes they made. Think about the Cowboys game. The Cowboys played one hell of a game. They just didn't play the perfect game. And I thought this article was really, really interesting. Be sure to go check that out. But it talked about the 80s 49ers with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. Somehow they always found a way to win unless you played a perfect game. And even so, there was a game back, I think it was 88, or 89, 90-ish, when 49ers came into the vet. The Eagles got out to the first three quarters, dominated the 49ers, let their foot off the gas, and Joe Montana ended up beating them. And I think that the Eagles had like a 14 or 21-point lead in that game. And that's the kind of thing you're talking about. You can't let your foot off the gas against a team like that. Same deal with the 90s Cowboys. The 2000 Colts with Peyton Manning were like that. And I mean, you always see, like, they didn't win many Super Bowls, but they were always one of those teams that you had to play perfect against. The Tom Brady Patriots, Brett Favre's Packers. The Chiefs now, if you think about it, sometimes they play some ugly games. They get down early, make mistakes, and they always come back, and they're never out of a game. And I think the Eagles fit that mold. And again, it ties in. It's an interesting thought, but it ties in with the whole good teams get the calls, or so it seems, and that's because you can't make mistakes. So if you do make a mistake and there is a bad call, which happens all the time, I told you yesterday, I'd be willing to bet that it's a pretty even if you look at all teams and bad calls. It's just it gets amplified against a team like the Eagles because they are so much better, and they demand you, as the article said, to play a perfect game. And if you don't play a perfect game and you make a mistake or two, it's going to cost you. And we've seen that all year this year with the Eagles, minus the Jets game, and that was just because the Eagles made too many mistakes to overcome. But I just thought that was interesting. It's a bye week, slow news, but I just, when I come across articles like that, I like to just bring it up and talk about it because I think it really makes sense, and again ties in with a lot of what I've been talking about on here. And that's just, I mean, if you think about it, that's you have to play perfect. And think about, and I talk about that loser mentality when you blame the refs. Well, there were times, especially with those Cowboys in the 90s, where you had to play, like you couldn't make a mistake. Like if you're sometimes, like I remember games where you're driving down and you kick a field goal and you feel defeated because you know they're going to come down and score a touchdown. And those are kind of where we are now with our Eagles. We're just on the other side. So revel in the moment. Enjoy it, because this is where we're at. The Eagles, as the article said, are inevitable, which is a word I always struggle to say. But inevitably, they're going to win unless you play the perfect game. So just a thought on that. I talked about the bye week. There is no football this week, so why don't I go over and check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. It's an around the horn style take on the NFC East. Pretty interesting this week because there was the big Eagles-Cowboys matchup. And I have to say, great guys over there, and I feel like they all have taken on the personality of their respective teams. So go check out the Clashing Conferences wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. All right, today we're going to go back to 1930. And on this day, November 11th, 1930, the first ever NHL game was played featuring a team from Philadelphia. It was played at the old Philadelphia Arena at 45th and Market. The Flyers were not involved in this, though, but ironically enough, the team that played their home game that day at the Philadelphia Arena did wear orange, black, and white. That's right, the Philadelphia Quakers played their first ever NHL game, losing to the New York Rangers 3-0 on this day in 1930. The Quakers, the previous few seasons, were the Pittsburgh Pirates. They moved, originally were like the third American NHL team, but due to money issues because of the Great Depression, they weren't financially viable in Pittsburgh anymore. So without going into the details of the business partners and things like that, they moved to Philadelphia for the 1930 season and played their first ever game at the Philadelphia Arena, which was at 45th and Market on this day in 1930, losing 3-0 to the Rangers. The team, though, even though they were financially struggling in Pittsburgh, didn't really do much better in Philly, due in part to the Great Depression. And hockey just didn't really take off that well as quick in Philly as it did with the Flyers. On the ice, it was even worse for the Quakers. They went 4-36-4. The 136 winning percentage is the worst ever in NHL history, or was the worst ever until the Washington Capitals in 1974 and 75. The Philadelphia Quakers only scored 76 goals that year and gave up 184. It's the fewest wins ever in the NHL for a season, tied with the 1919-1920 Quebec Bulldogs. So you might think then when the Flyers came in, they got their idea for their orange and black from the Philadelphia Quakers. That would make sense and be a good way to kind of sum everything up. However, It was not. Ed Snyder really liked the way the Texas Longhorn, and it kills me to say that, but the Texas Longhorn orange really popped and showed on TV and in the stands. So even though the Quakers were orange and black, he took his inspiration, I guess, from the Texas Longhorns, not the Philadelphia Quakers. So the Philadelphia Quakers only lasted 1 year, that 1930-31 season. Just a brutal year. And it would be like almost another, 35 years, 36 years before hockey would return to Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Flyers. But on this day, 1930, it was the Philadelphia Quakers losing to the New York Rangers 3-0 in the first ever NHL game featuring a team from Philadelphia at the old Philadelphia Arena. All right, I've been talking to you about Carcan. Hopefully mine's coming today, so I can actually show you and give you sort of. It's a great product, especially if you have kids, because kids are just dirty, sloppy human beings. Fits right on the back of your seat, gives them a place to put their trash in. Don't have kids. Your car's probably pretty neat then, but they do have other car organizational things for you to do. They have cup holders, things for your visor. I'm talking about the trunk thing, and like if I didn't have a truck, I think the trunk thing would be great just to keep things organized, especially with if your kids play sports. You can keep like cleats and balls and shin guards and whatever just right there. Buy two of them if you want, one for each kid if you have whatever. But go to carcan.com, check out their wide selection. This makes a great gift, especially for people in the office. And take 20% off. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery 20 off, which is all one word, for 20% off of your order. And again, the more you buy, the cheaper it is. And if you order over 5, you get free shipping. So you have to go check it out. Carcan.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery 20 off for 20% off of your order. That's Carcan.com. Jim Montgomery 20 off for 20% off. All right, so finishing up today's episode with our Phillies' most disappointing athlete. And today we're going to go to Major League Baseball. And today's disappointing athlete, Jake Arietta. He signed a 3-year, $70 million deal with the Phillies in 2018. He signed it in like mid-March, so not long before opening day. So it was delayed for him to even come in to play for the Phillies. Prior to coming to the Phillies, though, he was an all-star, won the World Series, won a Cy Young, pitched 2 no-hitters, really was expected to come in and be sort of a force and a veteran leader on a pitching staff that had like a young Aaron Nola and some guys who had some question. And they even brought in Zach Wheeler during this time as well. 2018 was terrible for Jake Arietta. He blamed his teammates for playing bad defense. Like he yelled at Scott Kingery for not being in the right spot at one point. Apparently he injured his knee in June, didn't tell anybody, and then it just kind of snowballed for him from there. He was respectable. He went 10 and 11 with a 3.96 ERA, 138 Ks. Not terrible, but not worth the contract, and certainly not what Jake Arietta was in his career. 2019 in the offseason, he re-injured his knee again working out. Had to have meniscus surgery, and then just wasn't right. I don't think he came back until like June or whatever it was. Like he was just a mess that year. But he had the meniscus surgery, and then it was pitching. He was doing okay, and then it started falling apart again. He had a bone spur on his elbow and was shut down in August for surgery on that. He went 8-8 with a 4.64 ERA, 110 Ks. Then 2020, he was supposed to come back. He was healthy, and then COVID hit. Then he had a hamstring injury. Only went 4-4. With a 5.08 ERA, but most of that was like one bad start that really ballooned his ERA. But when it was all said and done, he went 22-23 with a 4.36 ERA, 280 Ks in 3 seasons in Philly. The biggest issue with him was he was not dependable. He didn't have quality starts. Like he came in, was supposed to be an ace, and you knew the bullpen. He was only going 5 innings at most. It just didn't live up to the hype of the contract. Another one of those guys who just it came in with all the hype in the world and just was completely terrible. He only played one more year after he left the Phillies anyway, so we kind of got him at the very tail end of his career when things just kind of blew up. And to me, he's kind of the poster child of that Gabe Kapler pre-Bryce Harper sort of era where the Phillies just were trying and they just couldn't get anything right. But today's Philly most disappointing athlete is Jake Arietta, who just from day one pretty much was a disappointment in Philly after signing a 3-year, $70 million contract. But on this day, back in 1930, it was the Philadelphia Quakers playing the first NHL game ever in Philadelphia, losing to the Rangers 3-0. Be sure to check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences. Do some shopping this weekend at Philly Goat and Car Can. Use those promo codes. Be sure to check out Back to the Future for the recap of the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you to all the veterans out there. Don't forget to let me know the question of the day. How do you feel about the NBA in-season tournament? Give me your thoughts on anything from the fact they're having a tournament to the courts to whatever. Do we care? Do we not? Let me know. Social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Be sure to like and subscribe. Spread the word. Tell your friends. It's going to be a cold one, but it's supposed to be a beautiful day out. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Saturday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.